Art is political, but some art is more political than others. See what I did there? The little nod to Animal Farm, one of the most famously political books out there. Anyway. Welcome to this week's episode of The Echo Chamber, the show where we dive into nerd news and pop culture from Zambia and around the world. Now, unless you have been living under a rock, a lot has gone down this past week, from Charlie Kirk getting murdered. Yes, murdered, not assassinated. Let's not give him that much credit. He wasn't that important. To Gen Z in Nepal literally toppling their government and electing their new president through Discord. God, I love this generation. But here's the thing. If you look closely at these protests, you notice something strange waving in the air. The Jolly Roger flag from One Piece, flying as a political symbol of resistance. And Nepal isn't the only country to use this as a symbol of resistance. It all started off in Indonesia, then spread to the Philippines and even France. Another example of fictional icons being reimagined for real-world symbols of defiance. And that's what I want to dig into today, because the Jolly Roger isn't the only one. Two other masks, the Guy Fawkes mask and the Salvador Dalí mask, have also become powerful symbols of resistance.
Remember the 5th of November, the gunpowder, treason, and plot. I know of no reason why the gunpowder treason should ever be forgot.
V is one of DC's most famous anti-heroes, instantly recognizable by the Guy Fawkes mask, and apart from that, his iconic free speech, which, by the way, I can recite effortlessly in one breath.
Voila! In view, a humble vaudevillian veteran, cast vicariously as both victim and villain by the vicissitudes of fate. This visage, no mere veneer of vanity, is a vestige of the vox populi, now vacant, vanished. However, this valorous visitation of a bygone vexation stands vivified, and has vowed to vanquish these venal and virulent vermin, vanguarding vice and vouchsafing the violently vicious and voracious violation of volition.
Impressive, I know. The mask is his defining symbol, but the mask doesn't just represent V and his ideals. It also points back to the man himself, Guy Fawkes. Fawkes was infamous for attempting to blow up the Houses of Parliament, specifically the House of the Lords during its opening in November 5th, 1605. He and a group of conspirators plotted to assassinate King James. Now, he is someone who's actually important enough to be assassinated, unlike, say, a guy who argues with teenagers for a living, but I digress. Their plan was to replace James with a Catholic monarch, young Princess Elizabeth, who was only 9 years old at the time. Not exactly the brightest plan, putting a child in charge of a kingdom, so of course they got caught. Well, Guy did. The rest, history doesn't really talk about them nearly as much. Guy was tortured and executed. From then on, it became tradition in Britain to burn effigies of him every November 5th. Over time, though, Guy Fawkes Night softened into Bonfire Night. Because let's be honest, admitting you've got a holiday about burning a guy every year is a bit much. At first, his memory was one of total failure. That carried over even after V for Vendetta came out. Hundreds of masks were bought and trashed, but the meme of his failure somehow kept the image alive. And slowly, people began paying attention to what the story actually meant. The mask grew into a powerful symbol of rebellion against oppression. Hackers famously adopted it, portraying themselves as modern-day Robin Hoods, stealing from the greedy corporations that exploit hard work of artists, developers, and even steal your personal data. And beyond the internet, the mask has begun appearing in protests worldwide, embodying the film's central idea that ideas are bulletproof. People can be killed, but ideas live on. V's fight has never just been about vengeance. It was about ensuring the spirit of resistance and freedom outlives him.
Mi sono alzato, bella ciao, bella ciao. Mattina mi sono alzato, e outro ato invasor.
Money Heist is another piece of fiction that has inspired the oppressed to stand up against their oppressors. In the show, and increasingly in real life, the Salvador Dalí mask has become a symbol of resilience and rebellion. In the real world, it's most commonly seen in protests across South America. But why Salvador Dalí? Who even was this guy? Well, he was a surrealist painter. His whole career was about breaking rules. His art was unconventional, polarizing, and confrontational. He created grotesque avant-garde imagery and even dabbled in film that was just as bizarre and boundary-pushing. Dali's defiance of norms, his rejection of the idea that things just are, and everyone must conform, has caught the imagination of the creators of Money Heist. They chose his face as a symbol of rebellion, and soon, real-world protesters adopted it too. History has painted pirates as criminals, which, let's be clear, they literally are. Real pirates still exist today, and yes, they're criminals. But over time, the story changed. Pirates are now seen and portrayed as good guys. Think Pirates of the Caribbean, Treasure Planet, and Jake and the Neverland Pirates. And seriously, what's Disney's obsession with pirates? They love pirates so much, but try pirating one of their movies and suddenly, that's taking it way too far. Anyway, back to the point. One Piece is an anime that's highly political. Anime isn't a shy medium. Japan may have a conservative culture, but artists there know how to use their work to communicate serious ideals. In One Piece, the messaging is strong against imperialism and fascism. The story shows how the world government takes from the powerless to gain more power and influence, directly reflecting how real-world dictators and hypercapitalist leaders operate. It also reveals how those in power twist narratives to their advantages, blaming the oppressed for their own suffering and actively suppressing anyone who dares challenge corruption. These messages have inspired a generation that refuses to sit idly by. After all that's necessary for evil to triumph is for good people to do nothing. Playing by the oppressor's rules gets the oppressed nowhere. Real changes come from standing up and fighting back. That's the lesson of One Piece, and it's why the Jolly Roger, the classic skull and crossbones wearing a straw hat, has been used in recent protests, sparking the fire of a new generation of freedom fighters. So why even use symbols from fiction in the first place? Sure, real symbols exist, but they're often tied to organizations or political parties. That makes them less about communicating ideas and more about promoting a different organization that risks raising up another potential oppressor. No thanks. Fictional symbols, on the other hand, communicate ideas and ideals more effectively. At the end of the day, that's what art is all about. As an artist myself, I create art to communicate ideals so powerful they can move entire generations into action. This is also why governments try to quash free speech and control what people see in every medium they can, because they are afraid of art. And good. They should be. Anyway, thanks for tuning in. Let us know what you think in the comments below. And just so you know, LSCon is coming up soon. Be sure to grab your tickets on the Nerd Otaku website and join in on all the fun. See you there. This has been the Echo Chamber, signing out.